So yeah, so it's hard to find pictures that aren't completely just tampered with. Like, for instance, you see this one a lot. That's Mars. That's Bigfoot on Mars, but that has been tampered with a little bit. But I mean, he's in the picture. There's that Bigfoot is in there. And there were a couple, most of them I think are just pareidolia. I really do. And like when I see these, people are amazed by these, but me not so much. They say this is a thigh bone on Mars, and I could see that. It kind of looks like a thigh bone, but I don't think this is bones. Oh, hang on.
It's a mermaid tail skeleton. That's what it looks like to me.
It's a mermaid tail skeleton.
No, but that actually really does look like a rat. That other picture really does look like a rat. I just need to do a quick clarification, a quick correction. Richard Mall is not dead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Richard.
That's all right. I just wanted to put it out there. So,
should I go fully bald for the bull look?
No.
Go for it. but R.I.P. Marky Post, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, there's our night court trivia for the night. Thank you, Jen, for checking in. So she thinks that's a mermaid tail skeleton. Could be, probably not. And this is one of the problems I have with Mars. Let me see if I could find it. Parrot on Mars is and I only used a couple of clips in the episode, so I forget his name, which it was shame on me, but because I was going to use him a little bit more in the episode, but I felt this stuff was a little too out there because he sees all kinds of birds and parrots, dolphins, specifically birds, eagles. He sees them in the landscape that you can only see from far, far above, like the Nazca lines, for example. But these, like you would see this a lot. Like this is not. That's not really Mars. It's Disney's everywhere. So when he says like I can't really find one where it's highlighted, but this is what I meant in the episode. Like so he says you could just see it. It's obviously a parrot's there. Well, okay. I don't see any parrot. I don't even know where it is on here. I don't know where it is. But I don't see that stuff. And oh, here we've got one. But the Nazca lines you could see them from a helicopter, but the Nazca lines you could see some of those features from just a high enough hill. You can see them. What we're looking at here, you'd have to be in orbit to see these. So I think these are cases of extreme pareidolia, because I'm not against the idea that animals evolved on Mars. I'm not against that idea. If anything, I lean toward it. But to think that animals would evolve the same exact way as ours is, I think that's a stretch. Or that we'd have the same animals. But there's so many theories about Mars. Is that we came from there before it went nuclear, and I mean, I guess we could have taken the animals with us, like some kind of Noah's Ark. But yeah, I don't see it. I just don't see it. But the face I see. I definitely see the face. Rob Collins, Mickey Mouse on Mars, yeah. Joey, why not? We have no idea what life is, and that's fair. That's fair. I don't really know. I like the idea. I lean toward the idea that there was life on Mars. I don't think there is anymore. But you guys remember the meteorite, in fact, the one I was talking about earlier, where they put it under an electron microscope and they saw microbes in there. But it's still a debate whether they're microbes or it's just a natural artifact of the rock. Mars. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so it was a meteorite. So they definitely know that this rock is from Mars. And under the electron microscope, some scientists felt like this was microbial life, and plenty of scientists disagree. It's kind of hard to tell, but the debate is still going on. And this is, I mean, this has got to be over 20 years old. This picture. I mean, I think I remember Bill Clinton talking about this. So the 90s. Oh, is this another angle of it, or it's just reversed? Might just be reversed. Here's a good picture of it. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to say this is just a natural part of the rock, I'm with you. But this that looks like life to me. But to be fair, I'm not familiar with this picture. I know this one. I don't know what that is. I mean, because the internet wants to believe everything, right? The internet says that is an Arctic lemming. Yeah. When my eye just catches it, it definitely looks like a rat. Yeah. But I can't, there's no way to tell for sure, and they're not going to tell us. I couldn't find NASA acknowledging the color issue, and maybe they did. I don't want to say that they didn't. Maybe they did, but I couldn't find them acknowledging it. But it was like suddenly, as soon as Photoshop was able to do white balance, suddenly the images on Mars were starting to look a little different. But my whole life growing up until just very recently, Mars was allegedly this orange, hazy planet. And the first person that I saw to question the color and try to correct for it was Richard Hoagland. And he didn't really have the tools to do that back then, but he still did a pretty good job. It was enough to make a compelling case. Yeah, so like that. That was always what Mars was growing up, right? That's when Arnold's eyeballs are popping out of his head and he's falling down the hill. Get your ass to Mars. That was it. It was the red planet. But it doesn't look like that. Mars has blue skies above. What's going on in the chat? Milton, NASA's Photoshop skills haven't improved. New images contain obvious blurring, superimposed patterns, and sand cloning. One other thing that haven't improved since 1976 is the image quality. I don't disagree with any of that, Milton. The images, they're way too blurry. I don't know why we don't have more video. I know that we have like choppy video which are just stills. But the argument is always it's too much data, it's too much bandwidth. But if Curiosity or Pathfinder, Perseverance, for example, if can send thousands of pictures, that's thousands of frames. You could send a couple of minutes of like 24 FPS footage for us, and we don't even need it to be the huge landscape. Just a couple of short videos, like TikTok length that we can see like what's going on there, but they won't do it. For reasons. It's always resources but yeah, the images are always blurry. The clone stamp stuff, I just can't even explain it. I don't know why they would be so obvious with that. I wish I found this one before the episode. This is that's a nice picture of what Mars looked like back then. They've even got the trench. That trench, I think you can fit something like 3 or 5 Grand Canyons in there. So yeah, and this is also new. Growing up, Mars never had. If you said Mars had water, I mean, they would deplatform you for fake news. Yeah, here's NASA sending photos. You know, so NASA's sending this. Why? Why send that? That's obviously the color is wrong. And I guess I could fire up Photoshop, but you watch the episode. You know I'm telling the truth. Mr. Mahdi, the moon and Mercury have water. I haven't heard that about Mercury, but the moon definitely does, Mr. Mahdi. The moon definitely has water. Mercury, I haven't read that. I would have thought it's just too hot. But I could be wrong. Chris Continuum, how awesome was that last season of Picard? I really needed that. Awesome, Chris. I really needed that too. And the thing is, it wasn't, I think it was great. But if it was released, in the glory days of Star Trek, it would have just been fine. But we have been so desperately hungry for decent Star Trek that Picard really hit the spot. And look, if you guys haven't watched any of it yet, just skip Picard season 1 and 2. Just pretend like it doesn't even exist. Don't worry about it. You don't need to know. You're just going to be upset and depressed. Just start with season 3, and it's a love letter to Next Generation. If you're a fan of TNG, you have to watch Picard season 3. What? They say Mars has water as well. What? Mars definitely has water, 100%. There's no question about it. And most of it's below the surface, and there's a lot of it in the caps. But most of the pictures that you see from Mars are ocean bottoms. Now, we had one earlier, which I could really illustrate. But for example, like this picture, you see all the slate. This is all water erosion. This type of slate. That's all water erosion. That's not sand erosion. Because something that is also misconstrued or mispopularized is that Mars has this crazy, the dust storms in the atmosphere and the harsh winds, that Matt Damon gets marooned because of the crazy windstorms. But it's not like that at all. The crazy Mars storms the wind will get up to like 15 miles an hour because the atmosphere is so thin that it's really not that potent. But here's a picture of it. So this is clay. Right? So this isn't sand on Mars. You see how they've got the honest color in there. This is still a little too green. I could see that the white balance is off on this one as well. Still a little green. So this would actually be a little bit bluer as well. But this is clay. And clay is only made with water. That's the only way to make clay. And they're finding it all over the place. So no one really knows how much water was there, but the latest that I've read is that most of the surface was covered in water. And in the caps, there's still there's still like this cap right here has more water than the Atlantic Ocean in there. So there's still a lot of water on there. I don't know when the atmosphere got stripped away, if how much water gets stripped away also. It's not like the water just goes whoosh, but the air pressure helps keeps our stuff in here, because water will just evaporate into space, but air is heavy. So it just lays on the water and it keeps everybody chill. But there's just different theories on how Mars lost its atmosphere. The one that makes the most sense to me is that the the core stopped the core cooled and stopped spinning. Because we know now that Mars had a magnetic field. We know that it had tectonic activity. I mean, it was Earth 1.0. So we could have lost the atmosphere when the core cooled and stopped spinning. And then you've got no protection from the solar radiation, and it's just zaps the whole, just fries the planet, and the atmosphere just disappears, and then the water evaporates off with that. And that's why I get so afraid when I read the articles about our own, slowing down of our own core or shifting of the poles. 99% of the disasters that I cover on the channel, I don't really worry about them. I really don't. I'm not worried about the aliens coming back that nuked Mars and coming for us. I'm not worried about that. Nothing Nostradamus says I worry about, or Baba Yaga, or any of those, Madame Blavatsky. I don't worry about any of it. I do worry about the core, and I do worry about the shift of the magnetic pole, specifically the pole shift, because that's just when it will happen. That's 100%. It's going to happen. There's no other side to the story. It's going to shift. Just, I don't know. I don't want to be around for it. Kind of selfish. Like, the grandkids can deal with that nightmare. I'll be gone. But I do worry about that. That when with magnetic north just zipping all, like flying from Canada to Russia so fast. I think this is an accurate color image of Mars. And you hardly ever see this. You hardly ever see color like this. But that's a pretty accurate color profile of Mars. But that could also be Needles, California. But like these drive me nuts. And when I corrected them in Photoshop, there was no monkey business. I could have made them look like super real with just a little bit of tweaking. But I wanted to make the point that one click, one button, just have Photoshop look at the image, and Photoshop says, all right, I see blue, I see all these different colors, but layered on top of it is this orange. So let me pull out the orange, and that's the real color. And that's just white balance. That's when you white balance a camera, it goes from cool to warm, and that just is blue to orange. That's all that is. So auto color in Photoshop just does that. It just cools the image down. And I think, I could have corrected it a little bit more to make it a little bit bluer. I just wanted to make the point that this is how easy it is to spot, NASA shenanigans. And I want you to look for that now. Every time you see a Mars picture, I want you to look for it. I want you to be annoyed by images like this. Because this is just the constant reminder. Like this image is emblazoned in my mind. This is a super famous image. It was amazing, but it's just so fake. Yeah, so that's a blue-gray sky back there. Because look, that's not white. So Photoshop just goes, oh, look, this is supposed to be white, but it's yellow. So let me just cool it off. Next thing you know, you got a blue-gray sky on Mars.
This is clearly not a professional operation.